Hello, my name is Daniel Rich and I am a regional manager for NXL in the southwest side of the state. I am creating this YouTube video in an effort to try to help our many inspectors who are trying to pass the stormwater management class. I have very amateur technology and devices to try to create this. In fact, I'm using my cell phone to try to create this very video. So I apologize for that. I'm doing the best I can with what I've got. So and I'm going to move pretty quickly because you all have the pause button, so you can push pause at any point in time. But to be conservative for my time, I'm going to move pretty quick. Just to give you an idea of my experience, I took the stormwater management class 2 years ago and pretty much waited the full 2 years to take the test. And I did that for a number of reasons. The class, when I went and took it, I didn't really feel a lot of it pertained to me. A lot of it's over my head, if you can believe that. I'm a professional engineer, and the material just, I've never been big into environmental type stuff anyways. So a lot of it just was not of interest to me. But when I came down to actually studying the materials and preparing the test, which I didn't have a lot of time to do, it made a lot more sense to me. And I was able to study and pass the class the first time around. So when I actually went to take the test, Macy still worked for us, and she sent me this large binder full of information. I'm sure you all got something similar to this. And so it's a little bit dirty, been rolling around in my truck for a little while. So the first thing I did was I took this huge binder of stuff and I broke it down into 3 separate binders. Because you can take 3 separate binders into the class. So you can take, those binders can bind all the material. You can't take any loose papers and no written notes on it. You can write on the actual pages that they provide. The only thing you can add to what they provided is a table of contents. So to go through this real quick, the first binder, I don't have anything on it, is basically the laws and regulations. So I separated it out. The first section, if you can read that, is just the Stormwater Management Act. That was in what I put in part 1. Second one, I've lost the title page, but it goes into a regulation. See if you can read that. Whoops, wrong page. So, right there, Chapter 870. That's part 2. Part 3 of this is Regulations, Chapter 880. And then right behind that, not necessarily in the correct order, I had 850. So there's a reason I put it in that order. The Stormwater Act first, that's the actual law, and then the regulations to follow that. A lot of it repeats the same material in the regulations as what is in the law. And I put 850 last because that is the regulation that discusses what it is required to take the actual certification. So that was all in notebook number 1. Notebook number 2 is the basic course. This was the 1-day course that we took. I think it was 1 day. But it's just all the materials that they gave us in that course. I tabbed it. We'll talk about that more in a second. The third is the inspector course. All the materials they gave us, tabbed it out as well. So that's the first thing I did, was break down all my materials into those 3 notebooks. The second thing I did is Allison sent me an email, and in that email she had a number of attachments. She had 1, 2, 3, I got my computer right here beside me. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 attachments. And I'm going to go through those 7 attachments. You can use these to help you prepare for this test as well. But 7 attachments, when you first look at it, it's like just more on top of the mass amount of information we already have. So the first attachment she gave us says Candidate Information Booklet. This is just material that DEQ put together It's what it looks like when you open it. That basically gives you the information you need to know to go take the test, what's required for you to take the test, how to prepare for the exam, that sort of thing. To be honest with you, for me preparing for this test, I didn't even open this file. Well, I'm sure I opened it, but I didn't pay it any attention. Second attachment, I'm going in the order of the way they were attached for me, was practiced test questions. Now you want to just save that for after you've prepared. And once you feel like you're fairly well prepared to take this test, then open that file and take the practice test questions. The third file is test questions key. So that's the answers to all the questions asked in that practice. The third is tabbing your stormwater management inspector exam. This is the one that I used. If I can get it where there's not a glare. I'm not sure if you can see that very well, but this is what I used. I'll try to find some way to put it up on the video for you. This is what I used to prepare for the exam. And so if you just read through it, it starts out, it says tabbing and highlighting recommendations from the DEQ Stormwater Management Inspector Exam Refresher course. So Macy went and took the refresher course. She compiled the majority of that material into this file. And then if you read over to the side, it says tab underlines. So everything you see that's underlined, put a tab there. Others, highlight. So if something's not underlined, she's saying just highlight it. So if it's underlined, go to that page and put a tab. If it's not underlined, go to that page and highlight. So we'll go through this in more detail in a minute, but I want to continue going through the different files that she sent. The third, or I guess we're down to fifth attachment that Allison sent says Inspector BMP Specs Table of Contents. So what I did with this table of contents is I just printed it out, and then in this Inspector Stormwater Management course book, I didn't put it in the front of the book. The front is still green sheet, at least for me, but you know because they already have a table of contents. And their table of contents go Module 1, Module 2, Module 3, Module 4, and then Appendix. And so Module 4 is an overview of all the non-proprietary BMP design specifications from the Virginia Stormwater BMP Clearinghouse. So this is how thick this material is. This is the first couple modules. This is Module 4 and the appendices. So at the beginning of Module 4, I printed off and placed in there this table of contents that Macy made for us. So that tells you how each section is laid out, which is important for you to know, and what's in each appendices. And then it goes through, so it tells you how each section is laid out. Each section has a description, a performance design table, all that stuff. What's in the appendices? These are almost like additional BMPs. And then the number of BMPs and what page number and stuff they're on. So that's where I placed that table of contents. So now going back over to the attachments that Allison sent us. The next one is DEQ Inspector Stormwater Management Exam Prep Packet. I'm going to have to open this real quick. Oh, that's just, I'm taking care of that. So you can ignore that. That's basically explaining what all is included. So ignore that attachment because you're watching this video. You don't need to open that attachment and try to understand it because I'm explaining it to you. And then the very last attachment that she sent you is a copy of your stormwater inspector, your certification or whatever, certificate of training. So I'm going to try to, this is somebody else's, but that's kind of what it looks like. So when you go to take the test, you need to print that certificate off and take that with you. So that goes through all the attachments that Allison sent. So for now, to get started, I want you to open the attachment that is called Tabbing Your Stormwater Management Inspector Exam. Open that attachment, and we're going to start there and go through that. And I'm basically just going to show you how I tabbed my books, give you an idea of what I highlighted and underlined. Like I said, I'm going to move fast. You have the pause button watching the video, so press pause when you need to. So, this starts out with the Stormwater Management Act. The very first thing, let me get the right folder in front of me. I'm going to open it up here. So, Stormwater Management Act. It's in folder number 1. This is what it looks like, the title page. Major sections. 62.1-44.15:24, the definitions. She says to place a tab on the definitions. So I did that here. Tab on the definitions. And then when I went through there, what I did to help prepare me is you kind of get lost on where does it start a new definition. So I just highlighted every time when there was a new definition. So, you know, department. I highlighted department. It's in all the new definitions are in quotation. I just highlighted that. That way, when I'm taking the test and it says if it says what does VSMP mean? I'm making that up. That wasn't on the test, but it might be. Could be. And then I don't have to look through a bunch of dark words. I can look each one that's highlighted. Okay, there's C's, D's, M's, P's. VSMP, Virginia Stormwater Management Program. So I did that just to help me quickly find things. Going back to the attachment. So that's the first thing you need to tab is your definitions out of the Stormwater Management Act. Next thing, it's underlined. Further powers and duties of the State Water Control Board. That's on page 4 of 174. I just highlighted it. I read through it a little bit to try to figure out what were the powers. Next one, establishment of Virginia Stormwater Management Programs. That's not highlighted. So basically, it's communicating to me I probably don't need a tab there. So, see, that was 15. So yeah, no tab. I just highlighted it. I read through it a little bit. See, a lot of the exam prep for me and preparing is just going through and tabbing everything and highlighting everything, figuring out what's in here and where is it located if I need to look it up. Development of regulations, that's the next one down. It doesn't need to be tabbed, it just needs to be highlighted. So there you go. That's what I did. Development of regulations. That's on page 9 of 174. Authorization for more stringent ordinances. It's on page 14, 174. So you're kind of getting an idea now of what I'm doing, because that one was underlined. And there's my tab. Placed in my tab, just wrote on it, more stringent ordinances. So localities, essentially, they can create ordinances that go above and beyond what's actually required. And as I picked out things that I thought were interesting, or that I might have to know, there again, I'm an engineer, so if I saw a number, I said, that might be important, so I underlined it. So on page 16, I underlined at the bottom of the page 2,500 square feet, and then I understood what it was saying because of the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act. It may regulate things that exceeds 2,500 square feet. That was important because when I was in the exam, you need to understand, amount of square feet and what's required. Going back over here, then the next thing that they have underlined in this attachment is nutrient credit use and additional off-site options for construction activities. That's on page 17. There's my tab. I went ahead and I did some highlighting on that page. Of things that I thought was important. So the next thing is Department to review VSMPs. So that's on page 21 of 174. It's not underlined, so I didn't tab it, but I did highlight it right there. So I've got it. To be honest with you, when I took the test, I didn't look up anything out of this Stormwater Management Act. I basically just, it still helped me prepare. The next thing on here was right of entry. It's on page 22. I just highlighted it. Then penalties, injunctions, and legal actions. That's on page 25. Now this was something that you need to know, and it's covered in some of the regulations as well. It's also covered in the basic stormwater management course, and I think there was even a portion of the inspector course that covered penalties and legal actions, that sort of thing. So what is a federal penalty? What is punishable by jail time? How much a fine might you get for certain offenses? So this is really important to know. You definitely want to read through this because there's going to be, I'm just guessing, 5 or 6 questions, something like that, on this very subject. They hit this one pretty hard. So you can kind of see there, I've highlighted different things. There may be better sections when you get to the actual regulations that deal with that, but I'm telling you that that's something important for you to know. So that pretty much covers the entire Stormwater Management Act. That came to the end of this section in this attachment. So the next thing in bold that they have is Virginia Stormwater Management Regulations, which is 9 VAC 25-870. So it's the chapter 870 of the regulations that I showed you before. So just rolling right through this, and when you look at your attachment, most everything is underlined. So almost every item here, it's important. I did the same thing as I described before with the definitions. I just picked up on each separate definition and highlighted the start of it. That way I can easily pick out what I need to know. There was a lot more definitions in chapter 870. I didn't go through and read every definition, but there were important ones. MS4, you need to know what that stands for. That's on page 38. So as you can see, the definitions go on and on and on. There's a lot of them. Okay, so tab that. You want to know where those definitions are. The definitions as a whole maybe answer 2 or 3 questions for me. I'm guessing. I don't really know. I didn't keep up with it as I rolled through the exam. This was an important one. They have it on the attachment. It is on page 49, grandfathering. You'll want to read through grandfathering. As you can see, I highlighted quite a bit. I thought it would be important. It was important. You read through here all these dates. State permit that has not been issued prior to July 1st, 2014. Land disturbance didn't commence prior to July 1st, 2014. And on. This is important. You'll want to know each one of these dates, what happened before, what happened after, and what does that mean in terms of grandfathering. There was a number of questions regarding that. Going back over to this attachment from the email, there was types of grandfathering criteria. We just covered grandfathering. So section 54, SWP requirements. That's on page 50. So you better know what SWP stands for. This is one you want to tab. I went through, I did quite a bit of highlighting. You can push pause and see exactly what I highlighted here if you want to. But that gives you a little bit of an idea of the highlighting I did. What I felt was important. I'm not sure that how much was actually important, but all that highlighting is stuff that I read through. Now at the bottom of this, you'll see that it references a period of time, 14 days. You need to know what's 14 days, what's 48 hours after an event, what takes place in 5 days, or if you can do it in 4 days. There's a number of these. I'm not going to go through it all right now. So this is not meant to be a refresher. This is just how I prepare. But that stuff you want to know is the different time frames for doing inspections, what you got to do after a major rain event, those sort of things. And that's applicable to your job as well as to taking and passing this test. So next one, section 56, pollution prevention plan. That's on page 53. That's what I highlighted. There was a bunch of questions on that. So, section 69. That is on page 58. So that's off-site compliance options. So this was also, there's a few questions on this in the exam. What you could do off-site as compared to inside your construction site. What can you do off-site? There's quite a few of this. That's what I highlighted, what I thought was important. But there's stuff there. There's my tab. Tab it. Stuff you need to know. Then there was another definitions. So this starts on page 60. More definitions you need to do. We've already been through what I do for definitions. So I just did it all over again. Highlighted the definition. I didn't necessarily read through them all. There wasn't a lot of definitions here. But you can do the same. Tab it so you know that there's more technical definitions there. Let's see. Section 112. Long-term maintenance of permanent stormwater management facilities. So that, for me, was on page 69. It's good to go through this. It hit a lot of the long-term maintenance and the actual BMPs. But, you know, there's different things that were important. Here's the highlighting I did. One thing I felt was important and that I think there was a test question is right here. Which is, ensure each stormwater management facility is inspected by the VSMP authority or its designee, not to include the owner, except as provided in subsection C and D of this section, at least once every 5 years. Maybe a question on that. There's a time frame in there. Next thing, permanent stormwater management facilities inspections. This is another one. This is section 114. That was actually in what I just read. So I actually ended up with 2 tabs on the same page, long-term maintenance and inspections. Stuff for you to know. And section 116, enforcement. That's also on the same page. This kind of goes back to some material that was semi already covered with the penalties, legal actions, that sort of thing. Here's some more good information for you to see. So that continues on to page 170. And from the attachment they provided, that's all that they went through and felt was important to tab. I did not, you can see here, there's the rest of that regulation. I did not place any more tabs. So I was able to pass the test without going through many more of those. So moving right along to chapter 880 of the regulations. Pointed at this before, so chapter 880. This is the VPDES permit for construction activities. Might want to know what VPDES stands for. I'm suddenly forgetting off the top of my head, but might be a good thing to remember. Definitions. So tab it. Very first, we've already talked about how I handle definitions. You can handle that very similarly. There was a lot of questions about general permits and stuff, and that's really what this section covers. So here's something else I felt was important. This is on page 147. It has a date in here, kind of middle of the page, a date in here. So it says that this general permit is effective on July 1st, 2014, a very important date. You want to know what happens before and after this date. And the general permit will expire on June 30th of 2019. Might want to remember that date too. So then, Section 30, authorization to discharge. That's also on page 147. So just below what I was just showing you, it talks about authorization to discharge. It continues, you know, for the next couple of pages. Here's what I highlighted. You can push pause and look at this on your screen and then make yours look similar. Read through all of that. Make sure a lot of it makes sense to you. A lot of what I have highlighted in here talks about support activities. So look through a lot of that. Then, let's see, on page 149, it talks about unauthorized, allowable non-stormwater discharges. So I already showed you that. Just a lot more highlighting for you to do. So then, section 60, termination of a general permit coverage. That's on page 151. I did some highlighting also on page 150 because during the class they had me place all those stars there. For some reason during the class I placed those stars. I don't remember why. That was 2 years ago. But I highlighted all that. And there's page 151. That's what I highlighted. Then on page 152, notice of termination certification. So at the bottom of page 152 is a whole certification. I don't remember any test questions that I had on that, but someone felt that was important. Section 70, your general permit. Definitely. This is an important section. So there's general permit. Right there. I even had a star. I put this star in the class. And they're also telling me in this attachment over here to highlight that. And to tab it. There's my tab. General permit. And then as you go through there, it's just too much for me to go over in this short little video, but I'll just show you the page. Feel free to push pause and to highlight what I highlighted, to read through what I have starred and circled and highlighted. Make sure you understand a lot of that material. Just keep flipping. This is a fairly long section, so just kind of going through it all. Different things that I felt was important. You may also need to know. It's just a lot of stuff to go over in this short little video. This is the best way I know to do it. I'm up to page 160, 161. That's what I highlighted, what I felt was important. Page 162 and 163. This is where it gets into more of this stuff you need to know. What is the inspection schedule? So they have to be conducted at a frequency of once every 5 business days, or at least once every 10 business days and no later than 48 hours following a measurable storm. Stuff you need to know. What you need to record. So that page 162 and 163 was what I just showed. And then, let's see. On page 164, I had some stuff. Page 166, I had some highlighting. So that's a lot of stuff. That general permit, section 170, it covers a good number of pages. That's all I had. Page 166 is the last information that I had highlighted for that section of regulation. So the last regulation that there is, which you can look in the attachment, is Chapter 850. So in this Chapter 850, this basically just goes over and describes the regulations surrounding our certification. Basically, you can read through a lot of this on yourself and follow what Macy had in this attachment. So she had section 40.